Alright, hello everybody. So, of course, Castle Battle ended. Um, as you might expect, we ended up taking over, and we did win, and we did get control of Sunfire with help of our alliances. So thankfully, that did go to plan. So Win and Core helped out, and FKN did try to go for our Sunfire Castle. Of course, now some members of our alliance have moved over to TUA. There's that. I thought I'd go ahead and show a couple of the skills though, because I thought these were kind of interesting. So like, this was one of the hits that Fox took, and so you can see here it was like 996 to 993, and of course I got 1-to-1, so I didn't do so bad. I'm not the highest, right? But you can kind of get a back-to-back comparison. You know, that was kind of how that went. We didn't have as much marksmen, but we had better lancers and better infantry, so we ended up winning that battle pretty easy. Now, of course, if you're wondering, you know, yeah, I did throw in my, you know, because they were using a maxed up molly. I just thought, oh yeah, I've got this hero. Why not? You know, I might as well. I haven't gotten her gears all up to mythic yet, but you know, that's Philly for you. Of course, I did have another hit before that. And I mean, there was a lot of back-to-backs, right? But like, here's like another really, you know, yeah, we still didn't lose anything. You know, and again, kind of the same ordeal. You know, it's just a lot of troop loss. Still had an advantage stat-wise. Still much the same thing, you know. So it really didn't hurt us any. And most of the fighting that was done, I actually kind of joined into it a little late, so it wasn't so bad. Now, there is one thing I thought I'd show you too. Let me pull that up here. So, okay, here. So this is Chief Norton, and Chief Norton, this is what he's got. He's, you know, again, he's the guy that's probably got a little over 8 grand. You know, where I'm like, oh yeah, I got like 6K, you know. But comparable, you know, it's in the sense that, you know, here he's got 765, 721. You know, like that's what to expect with that kind of revenue, you know. And of course you got like level 100, you know, +8. Now that this is like a Gen 3 type thing. And Gen 4s are obviously a thing too, but I mean, you know, as you can see, the mythic gears being up as high as they are, that's pretty that explains a good chunk of it. And then obviously the charms being at level 5, you know, that's definitely going to have an impact. Level 5s and 6s and stuff like that. It's a T2 at 3-star, T2 at 3-star, you know, like multiple T2s at 3 stars. Pretty overpowered, you know, like there's no hiding that, you know. But anyway, I bring that up because, you know, like with all the fighting that was going on, let me see if I can show you. I think there was like one of these hits from a while back, right? And so like this guy, again, kind of comparable, right? But you can see that like he's got 10 and 1s and 2s. Doesn't have a fully maxed out set, but yet it still did damage to me, right? And that's just, you know, a comparison of 5 to 550s, 4 to 500s. It does make a difference to have more imp attack and imp HP. But there are some things that, you know, I could go at length at that, you know, it's like, of course, when you start getting into the combat question in this game and more about like the actual itty bitty, you know, nuts and bolts of information that, or nuggets of information that's out there, right? I guess something that, you know, I never really thought too much about is kind of understanding how to compare stats. Now, I'm gonna take a quick segue over into this for you guys because I thought, you know, this is kind of an interesting bit of information that really honestly ought to be shared more often. So I thought, well, you know, might as well. This is something that, you know, it was shared to me, and I didn't really think too much on it. But then I was like, you know, okay, that's actually not bad information there. let me see if I can kind of like easy way to do this. Yeah, so this will do. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we are just gonna do a quick switcheroo, so to speak. All right, so here's what I'm talking about, right? So basically, it's this mumbo jumbo, right? So basically, you got inf attack, lancer, inf defense, inf marksman, then you got lethality to leave. But I mean, this information here, basically, this is the information that you should probably use to kind of make a decision when you're wanting to compare. But the basic, well, bottom line is at least for me anyways, looking at, okay, how much Lancer attack do you have to Marksman defense? How much Inf attack do you have to Lancer defense? Lancer attack to Marksman defense. Marksman attack to Infantry defense. Marksman health to Lancer lethality. Lancer health to Infantry lethality. Infantry health to Marksman lethality. Like, this is how they're comparing. So, I mean, with any luck, hopefully that kind of makes sense. But, I mean, it's just a nugget of information that I thought, that's kind of a good way to look at it in terms of comparing stats and such. Of course, there's also the conversation that's can be had about, like, what's the difference between, like, so, like, for example, right? Let's say I've got exclusive gear, right? And I'm going to get 19% from this skill here and 30% damage dealt with this skill here, right? And we call these exclusive buffs, basically, right? And these exclusive skills are kind of one of their own type, but basically you get 30%. And the way that these are treated are actually kind of more like multipliers, which is to say that, basically if you could take the exclusive skill bonus that you get, and again, you can kind of look into the nuts and bolts of this, but I guess I could kind of show you what I'm talking about here, because Chief Norton here's got kind of the nuts and bolts of this conversation in a way. So let me pull it up here and I'll show you. I think it's easier to just kind of see it than it is to, like, me to just kind of go, oh yeah, you do this, and then you just say, like, I could say a bunch of things, but I'd rather just show you. I think it makes more sense if I do it that way. So we'll just do it that way. I think that makes more sense. Says that just ever so slightly. It should be good enough. Okay, so basically, when you're looking at the information, right? If you're looking at an exclusive skill, you're going to get 541 plus 5, 541, and then times 5 to get 573.68 on a 5% rally troop attack. And so basically this little bonus here for special bonus is going to give you that little extra, right? If you have a buff item, which is to say, like, you pop like a troop health attack bonus stat that you add, then that's also being treated the same way. Okay, but so now what happens if you take both of them? Well, now you're actually not doing just 20 and 5, you're actually doing 20 and 5 together and multiplying them together to get that total. If that makes any sense. And I thought that was kind of information that, like, it's out there, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some of the stuff that's out there that people can kind of, they can go into in greater detail. There's obviously different packs and different essence benefits, I guess, that are out there. But, this is just information that it's, it doesn't get spread around all that often, and I just thought, it probably wouldn't hurt to mention, since I think a lot of people will come by and watch this castle battle, but you don't really get into the nitty-gritty of what actually happens in these fights, right? Because, like, here, for example, right, just like when we were looking at that compare stats, it's basically coming down to the fact that when you look at it, right, 510 inf attack to 441 Lancer defense. As you can tell, I'm higher, therefore, okay, that's one advantage. Inf defense which is 408, compared to marksman attack. Okay, I'm losing. And if I look at inf lethality, it's 429, and compare this to Lancer health, okay, I'm slightly higher. So there's at least an advantage there, right? Now, if we look at infantry health, which is 585, and compare that to marksman lethality, it's at 428, I'm winning there. So there's three things already for the inf line on this troop power comparison that I've got going for me, right? Now, if we look at our Lancers, all right, I've got 503 to their 436. Okay, so there's one for me. Lancer defense is at 399, and their infantry attacks at 455. So that's one against me. And my Lancer lethality, which is at 349, to their marksman health, which, as you can tell, is at 383. So that's another one against me. Mind you that, yeah, basically out of the 4 slots, right, there's 2 against me right now to my 1. But my Lancer health is at 379, and their infantry lethality is at 517. So my whole Lancer line, I'm basically losing against basically the marksman bonuses and such. So there's a lot of disadvantages there for me. I'm only winning on one side, which is that my Lancer attack, being that it is at 503, so their marksman defense is the only thing I've got going for me. Now, if we look at my marksman attack, I've got 526 to their infantry defense, which is at 441, so there's one going for me. Marksman defense is at 414 to their Lancer attack, which is 455, so I'm losing there. My marksman lethality is at 480, and their infantry health is at 459, so I'm winning there. And my marksman health is at 488, and their Lancer lethality is at 468, so I'm winning there as well. And so basically what you get out of this is that I was, 2 out of, on my infantry, I was like 1 out of 4 out of my Lancers, and I was 4 out of 4 for my marksman in terms of what I got for a stat bonus. But that's just something that you can do for a comparison so that you can kind of get an idea. Now, obviously, it has no, how do you say, it doesn't mean anything to this little bar here. It just gives you an idea of what your advantages are in relation to your stats and your gear. And it becomes really more relevant, the more like, the closer we get to Gen 2 and Gen 3 and Gen 4. And this is why when we were holding Castle Battle, and this is really going to be important for forts in general, or any kind of holding of any kind, is that you got to be kind of mindful of like what your troops are that you're sending. Like if I go over and I reinforce a fort, and I'm just going to use him as an example. All right, this little flag is going to dictate which skill is going to get used. And 90% of the time, when you're defending, you want skills that are going to help you stay alive. That's going to be heroes like Patrick. It's going to be heroes like Philly. It's going to be heroes that, are ultimately going to be giving you a defensive buff like Sergei. Anything that's going to increase your HP or lower the damage that you're taking, those are all going to be things that you're going to want. Now, if you're attacking somebody, the inverse is then needed. You need things like Geronimo. You need things like Flint. You need things like Jesse. You need things like, even Jasser probably wouldn't be as bad. The thing is you're ultimately in those situations, right? You got to look at the hero skill, and you need to be paying very close attention to this first skill, okay? Because this is what's really what you're adding when you're joining the rally. Okay, now if you're like the rally lead, obviously you're going to bring in these 3 skills, but it's just noteworthy in knowing that I get a 40% damage up, or knowing that, if I'm getting like a stamina cost down, obviously that doesn't do me any good. It's the people that aren't paying attention to this that are slowing people down or making the problem worse. Obviously, if you're sending, like something that, I was mentioning earlier, like I would say, oh, you can do equalize. Well, you got to remember that if you do equalize, I'm assuming you only have T10s. Okay, you don't want some T5s, T6s, T7s. You want the highest possible troops. You don't want those lower ranking troops, because that just does everyone a pain. Like, it doesn't do them any good. You don't want to be that guy, right? Like, these are things that, tricks of the trade, so to speak, that, it makes a difference, and you don't want to be that person that falls behind. Now, I will say that, like, in regards to heroes, and this is something that I've been kind of talking amongst my friends and such, to kind of get a better scope of what should we really be focusing on. Because a lot of people know that the arena is where basically all of your energy is going to be put into. I mean, you basically spend a lot of your time getting arena points in here, and then you're using those to basically get yourself gear, other free items, and the higher ranking you are, the better off you're going to be. So ultimately, you don't want to be screwing yourself here. And in the way you compete, like, you can see that Gen 2s obviously are better than Gen 1s in almost every way. So over time, you're going to be investing more and more time into the newer heroes as they come through in the rotation. A lot of people look at the hero might, and I've told you that, yes, that matters, but it also matters that, what is being sent too. Like, if for example, if you have 2 Lancers, they have 3 Marksmen, you're going to have an advantage in the fact that Lancers beat Marksmen. Like, these are things that are just functionally important to the game itself, but at the same time, you have to be recognizing the fact that gear in the game is also important. I, for one, am of the opinion that what you really ought to do is mastery forge your gear up to 5, right? Because you can get them up to 5, but the moment you go past 5, it's when it gets immensely more expensive. Like, just going past 5, you get into 60 essence stones a pop. And most people can manage getting these up to 5 without a lot of trouble. And I'm of the opinion that a well-rounded set of 5 is really a good start. Because once you've got a well-rounded set of 5, then you can start thinking about, all right, now I want to increase my HP, I want to start increasing my lethality. So you start buffing these up more and more and more. I don't necessarily know if it's worth it to get like all the Gen 1's exclusive gears all the way maxed out. I think starting out, you'll obviously notice the advantage in Arena, but by the time Gen 2 swings around, it becomes pretty redundant pretty fast. I mean, one thing that can be said about it is obviously having it is better than not, but it's one of those things that, I didn't realize at the time how much of a swing it was going to be. And even now, I'm starting to like struggle to try and level up the next set of gear for what will effectively be the newer heroes that I'm going to use. And because you've got to have a rotation of at least, 4 to 5 heroes, it can be pretty difficult to maintain that over time. It's one of those things that, you'll struggle in your own way, but I feel like in a lot of the time, people put too much emphasis, I think, on things that at a glance seem like great ideas, but over time, they're not. Like, here I've got 2 Lancers and a Gen 2. There's no way I'm going to get through that. I know that I can't get through that. I'll refresh it. Look for that one. Obviously, I don't like hitting my own alliance. I'm not a fan of that. I don't like doing that. If I don't have to, I won't. So, like here, it's 4.6. It's better than nothing, right? Because a lot of people, what they'll do in Arena is they'll wait until like the last couple of minutes till when it ends, and then they'll spend their skills. So by no means should you be like doing this where I'm just, expending my challenges right away, because there's also an issue in that if you spend your challenges too quickly and too soon, you will have a harder and harder time getting to the top 10. I mean, even though I'm well over or under what some of these guys have, you can kind of pick up on what they use and why they're there. And a lot of the time it's, just to get like a full set. And this is something else, it was getting into, kind of like gear sets in particular, right? Is knowing that if you can max like a set of 1 hero gear, right, up to T15, that's like 1,000 essence tomes. Or stones. Yeah, tomes, my bad. You get 1,000 of those, and you can get it up to 15. Now, the thing is now, even though you can get a single piece of hero gear up to 15, or level 15 on Mastery Forgery, which, mind you, that's a lot of stats that you gain from that, right? You also need to have it at level 100 to really make the most from its benefits. But the main thing is that you can move that piece of hero gear over to the next hero, or the next generation, if you so choose down the road. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about is it's like, okay, so now you know this and you know what you've got on your hands. How do you make the most of it? And in some ways, I was looking at it like, okay, well, what's the benefit of like buying out the custom armament chests, which was just out yesterday. It was nothing more than a pack for $100. You get 80 tomes, 80 tomes, 80 tomes, or 240 tomes. At $5, you get 12. At 10, you get 24. At 20, you get like 48, and at 50, you get like 120, I think. And then obviously at $100, you get 240 or something akin to that. I'm not 100% on the numbers on 50. I might be wrong on 50. But the main thing here is that basically the most value you get is a total of 444 total essence stones if you were to pay it out completely, which is around $185 in American currency, right? That assumes, of course, that you're not paying 7% tax through Google or Apple Play stores, which most people are if you're from the USA, but maybe you're from a different country, so the interest rate may be lower or higher depending on where you live. The main thing being is that it costs roughly $200 to max out. And let's say you max it out, right? That's 444, but I just told you that if you divide that in half, that's 222, but yet for $100 you get 240. What does this tell us? It tells us that if you're slow rolling and buying out the maximum pack, you're actually getting better value than you are to buy a bunch of 5, 10, 20s, and 50s, which is kind of interesting in the way that that's scaled, but it's something to know. And chances are I'm going to find that pattern is also true in other packs and other, it basically benefits the guy who's either willing to spend a lot at once, or you can look at these, chief claim benefit cards, the Intel monthly cards, like you can take advantage of like holiday events and such. And I'm sure there's probably some advantages here and there from time to time, but it's just something that, at a glance, I can already look at and I can already tell you, at least from my experience so far, is that a lot of it is catered to that. Now, we're still not into Fire Crystal yet here, and so we've got only a couple of days left until Fire Crystal actually drops. And for those of you who aren't aware of what Fire Crystal is, it's basically going to increase the level past Furnace level 30. It's going to allow you to get a higher command center, which means more troops in a rally. It's going to allow you to basically improve your training speed because you'll be able to upgrade the buildings. You'll be improving everything, but at the cost of fire crystals being used for all of it. And obviously fire crystals are one of those things that you'll be able to acquire them just through intel missions like you normally would, but there's obviously going to be only so much that you have available, and there's obviously going to be a financial point for those when those packs arrive. And so you're going to have a great divide that occurs because a lot of the people that are already at Furnace level 30, well, they're now obviously going to get a little head because of the event giving them a little bit of fire crystal for being one of the top 30 players in the state for having gotten there first, right? But the point is that most of your energy and most of your time and focus is going to be into that. Now, of course, Kitaro happens to have the new, and he's the president, so he gets all the special, glamorous, shiny, pretty-looking stuff, right? Now, we obviously will shuffle the Sunfire Castle around among our alliances, but like right now, and this is, I think, really true in a lot of states, is that you'll have this initial phase where you'll basically have everybody rotate power, and eventually you'll get to a point where there will only really be maybe 5 total alliances that actually run things. The remaining 10 are hoping that no one skins them alive, and anyone past 10 is praying that they don't already. And so in many ways more than one, right? And I can get to the nuts and bolts of this when you look at the alliance power shift. All right, it's already happened. Even though KF took the Sunfire Castle, TUA is now number 1 in power. And so they've consolidated and brought a lot of their members into that. And effectively, because of this, now that Fox and a lot of members are now in TUA, it's only going to be assumed at this point that the personal power of most members are going to be from TUA. Which, as you can tell, outside of me, there really aren't that many people from TUA that are up on this board list already, and so with that in mind, with KAF kind of dwindling, Win kind of dwindling, and it's very clear how the long term is going to look going forward in the next coming weeks when obviously soon after this, we will have state versus state, and then that's where things will really pick up. And so, with that in mind, it's like you got to have a plan of action, and you got to have a plan to really kind of not only know that obviously in this game or any game like it, there's a lot of money divulging into this. Like, just to compete with those players is probably $4,000 or $5,000 just to get comparable sets of gear or even comparable sets of hero gear. And that's in one area. That's why it's like $10,000 to play these games. It's like, effectively, unless you have a lot of money to splurge, you're going to find yourself in a very hard you're gonna either follow behind or you're gonna basically struggle to keep up. But what ultimately separates us from a lot of those players is we know what the stats are, and we know what formations and heroes that we need to be using, and that is what's going to ultimately keep us ahead. And so with that in mind, I just thought I'd kind of spell out what is to be expected and what you guys probably, at least in my state, they're going to worry about. But even for you guys out there in different states, whether your state is new or if it's late, these are all things that I think a lot of people really will benefit from knowing. Outside of that, I would say the only other detail that I can say is, now that I know that Fire Crystal's coming up, the most you can do at this point is just save it and save and save. That's all you can do in these kind of games, is that you have to be able to save your troops, save your speed, save your resources, because things will gradually get more expensive, take longer. Things will be more, it'll cater more and more to the people that are spending more in order to keep up. And so obviously the direction is it's very time consuming. I mean, even now I'm what I'm doing, and this is really, I think, what's something that almost everybody should be doing. Get your research speed up, get your construction speed up. These are things that are going to save a stupid amount of time down the road. It's going to save a lot of energy and time, and in my opinion, if you're spending, it's literally saving money. And that's assuming that you're playing the game. For every other day, people that aren't addicted, they're probably not like, how about you just don't spend? Why play a game that you're going to lose against the guy who has the bigger wallet? And it's like, yeah, totally fair, totally fair. But that's why you typically follow behind the guy that has spent more, and you just follow in line with the people that have. That's the easiest, almost always the way forward in these games, and it's always been that way. With that said, it's just, this is my tidbit of information for you guys out there, and hopefully you learned a thing or two. But that's how our castle battle went. So now we have Sunfire in our possession, and at this point we're just looking forward to basically SBS coming up. I will have some videos out when State versus State arrives, as well as everything you need to know in regards to Fire Crystal. So if you have any other questions, though, and you want to know more about what has been discussed today, you're more than welcome to ask in the comment section below. But if you haven't already subscribed, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.